So, on the amateur boxing Reddit, Tossip, Tossip, is asking for a sparring critique. He says, "Here I am with an amateur fighter who has competed one time. He is around 30 pounds heavier than me. I'm the one with the grey shirt, southpaw, 42 years old, and 165 pounds. I definitely was gassed because this was the last sparring round of the 1.5 hour training we had. Pointers I noticed myself, crossing my feet a few times. Let him know I was tired with my body language. Difficulty establishing lead foot dominance. My guard was open a few times, but I was so exhausted. I always have difficulty sparring him. He always makes it difficult for me. He always throws punches and hardly gives me any breathing room. So, yeah, okay. Bearing all that in mind, let's have a look and watch the round. Because it's only one round, and see what we think. Okay, play. Okay, I love the sound in the background. Reminds me of pretty much every boxing gym I've ever been in. But I'm going to switch your sound out for some of my sound, so that I don't get copyright struck. Cool, let's continue. Right. Is that Dutch? You guys in Holland? Nice. Nice body cross. Body cross again. So, you're walking him down, mate. Oh, that was a good hook from him, though. Nice switch from him as well. Yeah, I think more of this. We'll come to this in a moment. Yeah. Nice. I mean, here again, you're pressing him, right? That's super impressive. And you're still moving really well for the end of 1.5 hours here, although, yeah, he's putting it on you now. You're still moving your feet, though. That body cross is sweet. Nice counter from him. I think, did he get you that jab again? Nice parry. I think that body cross of his got through. And again, you are walking him down here, mate. Yeah, that was it. No follow-up now. Oh dear. Out of gas. Nice slip. Beautiful. And you're still throwing. What have you guys done, like 10 rounds by now? Time. Okay. Pause. Right. Okay, I'm going to leave the round playing on repeat in the actual video in the background, so the viewer can watch it again. But let's talk about it for a bit. You are sparring a guy who looks like he's 15 kilos heavier than you, 15 centimeters taller than you, and probably about, I don't know, 15 years younger than you, maybe even more. I mean, how old is this dude, right? And not only is he bigger, younger, whatever, it's the good stuff. This guy's like he looks like a mini Canelo, doesn't he? I mean, look at how built his calves are. You can just tell from looking at him that this guy is like, he's a fighter, right? All of his muscles are for go. None of this guy is for show, right? And you are walking him down. I mean, when you are in your post going, I'm 42 years old, this. You say, yeah, I'm 165 pounds, and you're telling us that he's 30 pounds heavier than you. I mean, and you're gassed. You know that what you're doing here is pretty exceptional, right? I want to come back to that and wax lyrical about it a bit more in a moment. But okay, you want some technical feedback, so let's give you some. Obviously, you're tired, so it's difficult to judge someone's technique when they're completely gassed, right? What could I say to you that might be useful here? I would say you might... Okay, this is advice that I've received, okay? And I resist it. You might try changing your style altogether. Okay? So instead of being like 28-year-old Manny Pacquiao, think about being 38-year-old Floyd Mayweather. Right? So here you're taking it to him. What a lot of people have said to me is, instead of taking it to the guy, instead of leading, you should draw more, you should feint more, you should sit on the edge, you should conserve energy, basically. When you're giving up the reach, flick out that pawing jab, trying to get him to throw first, and then slip and counter, and make your footwork small enough and subtle enough to get you in and out of harm's way, but reduce the amount of distance that you cover unnecessarily. You got to conserve energy, basically. Switch to a style that is less pretty boy Floyd Mayweather and more money Mayweather, in other words. Something that wears better, right? I've resisted that myself. And it's up to you whether you make that change. The reason I've resisted it is because that style is not relevant to self-defense, and I'm mostly a Krav Maga instructor, right? And if we need to defend ourselves in a self-defense situation, we need to be taking it to them. Okay, we need to be doing what you're doing here. In other words, mostly being the aggressor where possible. We can't be kind of playing that countering game where we're sat on the periphery trying to score points and outpoint him. It's not just the art of hitting and not getting hit. For us, it's about, we don't want to get hit at all. We don't want to hit anyone at all. But if we have to go, we have to go, and we're going to go first, and we're going to go with the most, right? So I would fight more like you. But my recommendation, if you want to actually do better in sparring, is to think about a more sustainable style of sparring. Up to you on that change. Really, really difficult to change style, but it's important, right? Micro detail. What you might try and do sometimes to kind of deal with the range difference, because this guy's not only heavier than you, but if you need to kind of close distance on these kind of bigger guys, because you don't look much taller than I am, but if you need to close distance on these bigger guys, what I find sometimes is just making sure that you have the technique of bringing that rear foot forward first. Right, so when we learn basic footwork, the idea is we want to always be pushing off that back foot and stepping with the front foot, so we maintain the distance and the gapping in our stance. One of the really, really simple but incredibly effective things that you can do is to break that rule, right? So what you do is you bring the rear foot forward first, and ideally you're going to disguise that by kind of flicking the lead hand out, making some kind of noise up at the top, and then you bring that rear foot in. The guy who runs, is it e-boxing or short boxing, has an amazing video on this, at just breaking rules in boxing in general. If you haven't found his channel, I'll put a link to it in the description below. Here's what he says about it.
When you step the back foot up like this, you prime your push foot, adding distance and drive to your jabs, hooks, quick lead crosses, and long steps inside. Done right, it is a safe and subtle way to set up an advance, giving you more reach and power on your follow-up techniques without bringing your head or body forward until you're ready to commit. It's a bit of a distance deception thing. You sneak into range without any apparent advance. As long as you keep the step small, it is a very low commitment move. You don't compromise your stance or take any techniques offline, and it's easy to bail out from here if things start looking dicey.
Okay, so you preload that rear foot sometimes. I mean, here you're exhausted, so whether you've got those tactics and you're on the attack or not, it's difficult to tell. One kind of meta and complex bit of feedback I might give you is to learn to switch yourself. So your opponent here changes stance a couple of times. Learn to change stance with him, right? So Southpaw versus Orthodox is about distance between two fighters, because we can't close into each other in the same way, because the lead hand connects to each other first in the mirror stance. As the smaller person, if I want to be the aggressor, it's easier for me to slot into my opponent if I am matching him in terms of stance. So if he goes orthodox, I want to go orthodox as well, right? The other reason I found going southpaw and orthodox useful is sometimes I want a break. So as a smaller person, what I find is going southpaw the way you are, I can keep more distance between me and him more effectively by shutting down his jab with my lead hand, and basically just kind of pushing away at the periphery and reducing the pace of the fight. And what I find is that allows me to rest more, and also takes away his main weapon over me, which is his jab. What you might find if you want to be aggressive is that switching to match his lead, so being an orthodox fighter as well, might allow you to get your own jab in more, right? In some cases here, he switches to southpaw with you, and he lands, I think, his jab twice. Switch with him. And I think another reason for switching as well is just to preserve the balance in your body as well, because you're something that Bruce Lee said was that the rear foot is the piston that drives the whole fighting machine, right? If you switch, what you might find is that you're going to spread the strain of just driving yourself forward between two legs and not just one. You'll have a more even body, in other words. The ability to switch and strike from two stances is especially important for self-defense. It's in a way that is different than boxing, because for us, we may have to fight multiple attackers. So I might have to fight this guy here and turn and start fighting this guy over here. For you anyway, I would say learn to switch. It's just good for balancing your body out, and it's good for kind of making sure that you can match him tactically. Okay. Those are the bits of advice I can give you, because in terms of technique, you know full well that you're at the end of a 1.5 hour training session, and you look like you've done 10 rounds here. And I think you also know, you knew when you posted this that what you were doing here is pretty amazing. You're going at a high pace in the 10th. You're taking it to the younger man, the much younger man, right? In these rounds, for most people, for most of us, it's enough at 42 just to be surviving, right? When I was 42, I was sparring a guy, and he was really taking it to me, and I remember asking him, like, how old are you, dude? And he was like, I'm 24. So it's like, the numbers are completely flipped over, one to the other. So my point is that pretty much anything that you're doing in this last round it can't really be judged technically, right? And I think you kind of know that. So you deserve massive kudos for your work rate and your training, and the fact that you're able to do this at such an advanced age. Very, very few people in boxing gyms are over the age of 40 and still training like this, for sure. I mean, you might get recreationals hitting the bag, but they are not sparring. Right, you are increasingly going to get into the same space that I'm in, which is where you're the oldest person in the gym, and that makes you special. And so yeah, you deserve major kudos for that. I think that your goal, rather than thinking technically, because as in the next few years it's going to get harder and harder and harder, trust me, I think your goal should be to spar this dude for another 10 years. I think you should be sparring him for another 10 years, because you probably have a growth mindset and just a warrior mindset, and you're going to be, I think you're still going to be there in your 50s, right? You're still going to be working hard. You will not be who you are now, but you're still going to be at it, right? What you might find is that you still outlast him, that you really outlast him, in fact, when you're 50 and he's kind of heading up onto your age, because you have that kind of dedication, whereas a lot of these young guys, they kind of quit in their late 30s. So yeah, rather than giving you a bit of specific technical advice you should work on, I would say aim to spar this guy for the next 10 years. And you might find that you really surprise yourself. Sometimes it's just It's about steam. Yeah, it's about steam. And, you have to just keep going. And as you kind of get into your 40s, it's like a question of how do you keep up with these sort of younger people. I'm determined as a self-defense instructor, so when I teach Krav Maga, because a lot of people who train self-defense are older than boxing trainees, I'm determined that those people have a safe and pleasant place to still spar. So I don't like to have younger people absolutely smashing them. But the point is that as you age, you kind of struggle. It gets harder and you fall behind in the pecking order. And you increasingly ask yourself, like, can I keep up with these guys? Can I keep going? Do I have what it takes? Am I going to have to stop someday? Maybe. But, yeah, today is not that day. Keep going, mate. Keep going.